Hello, everybody. Very glad to have you all here. And thank you very much for joining this webinar. My name is Paolo Bray. I'm the founder and director of our World Sustainability Organization, as well as the foundation. And I've been working for many years on certification programs to promote sustainable use of our ocean resources. So I'm going to start sharing my screen for my presentation for this webinar on UV creams, corals, their potential impact on the marine ecosystem, as well as sustainable UV creams certification and our specific friend of the sea sustainability standard for UV creams and which are safe for the coral reefs and for the marine ecosystem in general. So today's webinar is about UV sunscreen creams and the potential environmental impact and the sustainability Reef-Safe certifications. So our story dates back in the early 90s with my involvement in the Dolphin Safe Tuna program. I soon realized that certifications could be a very important tool to achieve tangible conservation results. So in 2008, we launched Friend of the Sea, initially focused on certification of seafood from sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. We then expanded its scope to certify sustainable nutraceutical products such as omega-3 and collagen, and now many other products as services such as UV creams and other cosmetics. 10 years after Friend of the Sea, we launched Friend of the Earth, initially certifying products from sustainable agriculture and farming, and now into fashion, sports, events, and many others. In 2022, we created our World Sustainability Foundation, which supports conservation projects in over 40 countries. In 2023, we opened our first Sustainable Friends concept store right in the center of Milan, in the highest footfall street in Italy, Currently, over 5,000 products from more than 1,500 companies in 90 countries carry the Friend of the Sea and the Friend of the Earth certification logos. In particular, the Friend of the Sea standard is the only standard for seafood from sustainable fisheries, having been endorsed by the IAF multilateral agreement and national accreditation bodies, making it the only real third-party certification in seafood and omega-3 sustainability. As far as the World Sustainability Foundation, as I was saying, it promotes and supports conservation projects in over 40 countries. And here is a map of these projects. Among them is also these projects to support coral restoration in Thailand, managed by an NGO, ATMEC. As we are talking about corals, I'm mentioning this one, and sponsored by a nutraceutical omega-3 supplements company called UGA Nutraceuticals. But what are corals? Corals are colonial marine invertebrates. They typically form compact colonies of many identical individual polyps. Coral species include the important reef builders that inhabit tropical oceans and secrete calcium carbonate to form a hard skeleton. A coral group is a colony of very many genetically identical polyps. Each polyp is a sac-like animal, typically only a few millimeters in diameter and a few centimeters in height. They can grow horizontally 1-3 centimeters per year and vertically 125 centimeters per year. A set of tentacles surround, as you can see, a central mouth opening. Each polyp excretes an exoskeleton near the base. Over many generations, the colony thus creates a skeleton characteristic of the species, which can measure up to several meters in size. Individual colonies grow by asexual reproduction of polyps. As you can see from this image, corals also breed sexually by spawning. Polyps of the same species release gametes simultaneously overnight, often around the full moon. Fertilized eggs from planulae, a mobile early form of the coral polyp, which, when mature, settles to form a new colony. So I would like to show you this video, which basically shows you visually what I just said. I'll show you just 3 minutes of it.
Once a year, something astounding happens at Australia's Great Barrier Reef. It lasts barely half an hour. If you jumped into the water at this very moment, it'd be like swimming through a snow globe, hundreds of kilometers across. But these snowflakes are actually packets of eggs and sperm of coral. Corals might look like colorful rocks or undersea gardens, but they're actually animals. A coral is a colony of hundreds of thousands of tiny individual animals called polyps. Each of these flower-shaped polyps has a mouth and tentacles. Polyps secrete calcium carbonate that creates their skeleton. It gives them structure and anchors them to a rock or the seafloor. Since they can't move to find a partner and mix up the gene pool, most warm water corals practice broadcast spawning. But with such a short window to meet up, they have to sync it just right. The warming summer waters cue the right month. The light from a waning moon cues the right day. And the setting sun cues the exact minute. Good luck out there. These bundles contain the coral's gametes, its sperm and eggs. But the gametes don't mix in there. The bundles float to the surface and burst open. Sperms search out a new egg. Only one of these guys will get in. Look familiar? Once fertilized, it starts dividing and transforms into this adventurous larva called a planula. The planula swims through the sea, searching for a place to settle down. Chemical and light sensors on its backside guide the planula to the perfect spot. It wants what we want: a stable foundation, plenty of sunlight, and room to grow. The planula cements itself into place and morphs into a polyp. As it grows, it absorbs algae called zooxanthellae from the surrounding water. See these green dots? They live inside the polyps. The algae gives the coral nutrition and its brilliant colors. Then something curious happens. The polyp clones itself. It grows copies right out of its side that then bud their own clones. Through broadcast spawning and cloning, corals create the massive reefs we're familiar with.
So I thought it was worth seeing this one. And as it really explains very neatly the whole process. So rugose and tabulate corals were common in the Paleozoic, approximately 500 million years ago. That's when the corals first appeared. However, a mass extinction event took place at the end of the Permian around 300 million years ago, when over 90% of all invertebrates became extinct, including all tabulate and rugose corals. The reason seems to have been due to the formation of the supercontinent Pangaea and the disappearance of environmental niche. Since the Triassic, scleractinian corals have become reef builders. And the coral reefs range in size from a few meters to hundreds of kilometers. But they fall into three main types. Fringing reef forms when coral reefs grow in warm, shallow coastal waters, where sea level rises or the land sinks at a slow rate coral growth can keep pace. Barrier Reef, as a volcanic island slowly subsides, the reef grows upwards at the same rate. In this way, the reef forms a barrier reef a little way from the shore and with a lagoon behind it. And the well-known atoll, continued subsidence or a rise in sea level causes the volcanic island to disappear below the waves. The reef, however, continues to grow, taking on a roughly circular shape, an atoll, and enclosing a lagoon floored by sediments and reef debris. So when corals are examined under a microscope, their outer surface can be seen to be made up of hundreds of ridges, about 200 per centimeter. Each ridge was formed in a single day as the coral grew. Modern corals have about 360 growth ridges per year on average, every day. Now let's look at the distribution, where coral reef ecosystems are important for tropical and subtropical coastal communities. But as you can see from the distribution, we can notice that the area covered is very relatively small compared to the vastness of the oceans. It's estimated to be roughly 0.1%. However, 25% of the species found in the ocean, of the aquatic species, are there. That's why they're called the rainforest of the sea. And as you can notice also from this map, there are two types of corals. There are the warm water corals and the cold water corals. They have some differences also in their life cycle. So coral reefs ecosystems are important for tropical and subtropical coastal communities, small island developing states, and indigenous peoples, because they provide ecosystem services such as food provision, livelihood opportunities, carbon sequestration, and protection from storms. Coral reefs dissipate, imagine, 97% of the energy that would otherwise hit the shorelines, 97%. The diversity of reefs contributes to the maintenance of a so-called genetic library, which is, of course, very useful for medicine now and in the future when the properties will be discovered. Coral reefs attract millions of tourists every year, bringing important income to coral reef communities, sometimes more than half of the country's national products. Reef tourism is calculated to be worth approximately $35 billion globally per annum. This includes on-reef tourism, such as diving, snorkeling, and so on, and indirect contributions from reefs to tourism, such as calm waters, beaches, and seafood, and their use in advertising and so on. And 1,471 species of fish, 140 species of coral, and more than 500 species of non-coral invertebrates are harvested from reefs worldwide for use in the aquarium and curio trade. Human-caused or anthropogenic activities are major threats to coral reefs. Pollution, overfishing, destructive fishing practices using dynamite or cyanide, collecting live corals for the aquarium market, mining corals for building materials, and a warming climate are some of the many ways that humans can damage reefs all around the world every day. On this map, you can see how the various threats are more relevant in certain areas. This map seems, by the way, not to highlight the impact, for example, of unsustainable fishing practices also on cold water corals, for example, by bottom trawling. The impact seems to have had a bigger impact, a bigger hit, let's say, in the Indian Ocean. Pollution seems a major cause of threat in the Caribbean Sea and in the Red Sea, and dynamite fishing in the Pacific Islands. The local human impact, combined with the global impact such as climate changes, acidification, and cyclones, further increase the damage and the consequences. So let's look a bit more in detail on some of the potential impacts. There's an impact from overfishing, from fishing in general by means of overfishing, and the ecosystem impact or impact on the seabed. An emblematic image of this impact is, I think, provided by these pictures and videos available online showing how bottom trawling in New Zealand, but it could be potentially in other places around the globe, caught huge corals, which is then pushed back at sea. And this is why it's important to look for seafood that is certified, and in particular, the Friend of the Sea certification requirements in the standard, as you can see from the fourth point here on the list, request also that the fishing gear have no impact or no unsustainable impact on the seabed. Coral reef mining can also have a major impact. In some countries, such as Maldives and Sri Lanka, but not only, it is common to use the coral reef for building, as you can see from these dramatic images, with the consequent huge impact on the reef. But corals can be found also in mines inland. This extraction has fewer impacts, as the corals in these mines are not live corals, but fossils. By means of its sustainable mining standard, Friend of the Sea has certified some cosmetics and nutraceutical products, such as those of the US company Coral Calcium. Other major threats to coral reefs is pollution from different human activities, such as failed septic systems, stormwater runoff, deforestation, road construction, agriculture, as well as some chemicals, potential impact from sunscreens. Excuse me. In this regard, in fact, we must realize that the tourism industry has grown exponentially, and currently it is estimated that 1.5 billion beachgoers seek protection from the sun each year. This is generating, as a consequence, a relevant impact on the environment. Sunscreen elements can enter the environment in three main ways, as you can see from this infographic. The sunscreen you apply may not stay on your skin. It must fall off your hands, or it might be sprayed and not reach the target. Then when we swim, sunscreen may wash off. And when we shower, sunscreen can enter the waterways. Some of the chemicals which can harm marine life at certain concentrations are listed here on the left. They can impact not only corals accumulating in tissues, inducing bleaching, damaging DNA, killing the corals, but also green algae, sea urchins, fish, mussels, dolphins, and so on. Apart from using Friend of the Sea certified UV creams, it is recommended to help the marine habitat by seek shade, in particular from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., use umbrella, sun hat, UV sunglasses, sun shirts, leggings, and so on. We must anyway recognize the importance of sunscreens. They provide protection against sunburn and potential skin cancer. Their protection factor is monitored by SPF units. The SPF value is equal to the ratio between sunburn of sunscreen protected skin and sunburn of unprotected skin. So, for example, SPF 15 gives you 15 times your skin's natural protection against skin burning in UVB rays. To be able to claim water resistance instead, a sunscreen must provide 50% of its, at least 50% of its original SPF after 40 minutes in the water. In other words, 50% of the sunscreen ingredients may be released to the water, but not more. In order to be certified friend of the sea, instead, a sunscreen must be much more water resistant. It must instead maintain 80% of its SPF after 80 minutes. This unless it does not contain any of those ingredients which could potentially be toxic at higher concentrations. So Friend of the Sea, differently from other claims, focuses also and gives its due value to water resistance, not only on those ingredients potentially toxic for the environment. In other words, it is important to prevent any risk, also considering the evolving and yet not so clear and definitive science around the potential toxicity of ingredients. In fact, several of the tests on these ingredients have been carried out in laboratory and are very difficult to replicate, if not impossible, to carry out in the marine environment. So what has happened is that over the years, producers have started to make their own claims. Countries or states like Hawaii have introduced their legislations to ban certain ingredients in sunscreens. Consumers are interested to be part of the movement, but often remain confused about the various claims and what they can do. The number of certifications and self-claims has multiplied. This is why it is fundamental to have an internationally recognized, verifiable third-party certification like Friend of the Sea, which also contributes, as I've explained, through our foundation, to conservation. And it can also be applied to other related sectors which could have an impact on the environment, such as fisheries, as we have seen, ornamental fish trade, coral mining, as we have seen, resorts, tourism, and we have certifications also for diving, snorkeling, and so more, which could have their own impact on the coral reef. You can find plenty of information on the certification, on the Friend of the Sea certification, on our dedicated web page. As anticipated, the requirements for Friend of the Sea Reef-Safe sunscreen include release of less than 20% of its chemicals into the water after 80 minutes, does not contain chemicals that damage coral reefs and marine life in general, and there is evidence of testing from independent laboratories and plastic offset, because we have also a plastic offset program by means of which the companies that produce this sunscreen, as it happened with one of them, which I will highlight to you later, introduce in the environment plastic containers that will be most likely used near the sea, which there is no assurance that they will be actually disposed of in the proper way. So in order to compensate with this potential impact on the environment, companies can offset this amount, this weight in plastic that is introduced in the environment by supporting the equivalent or more recovery of weight of plastic from the environment, from beach cleaning and other initiatives, with the system that we are proposing, that allows complete traceability of the projects, of the tons that have been recovered. So any companies that is interested on that can get back to us, and we will guide them. So these are images of the standard requirements that you can find on the web. Of course, I won't go into the detail, but you see there are a number of substances that cannot be used. And every few months, we are improving the standards as we get also inputs from the companies, from the market. There are new breakthroughs in the market. So this is the image of one of the certificates that has been issued and that the company would get once certified. And this is a list of the certified and under audit. Actually, there are more companies, but these are the list. This is the list of the 5 certified producers of UV creams which have been certified. And here you see some of the images that we have collected. I apologize, some of the UV creams are not yet shown in full because we don't have the image with the logo, but they are listed there. So you can see the logo is used on the pack also. And these brands, we have also this major retail chain, Lidl, that has some of its UV creams certified. And for those of you who arrived till the end of my presentation, you can also check on the webinar system. You should be able to download this dossier, which is anyway available free of charge on our website, and which basically goes more in depth on the subjects that I have just covered. So this said, I will stop the screen sharing if I manage, and hopefully we'll manage to go back to our webinar if I find, here I am. And I'll be glad now to launch the polls that I had created. So the first poll is, which do you think are the most relevant features for a UV cream to be reef-safe and sustainable for the marine environment? Option 1, it must not contain ingredients which could be potentially toxic at concentrations normally found in tourist-dense areas. It must be highly water resistant. If you think that this is most important more than any others, you can choose this. Plastic must be offset because maybe you feel that that's the main issue. And all the above in case you want to vote for that. So let me start also the other poll, which is the main threat for corals. Is it UV creams? Is it climate change? Is it its use for buildings? We've seen what a major impact. Is it in general pollution from urban areas or unsustainable fishing practices or the coral jewels industry? Because I haven't really mentioned this, and I apologize. But of course, there are several issues with that too, and maybe we'll dedicate a full webinar on that. We are still looking for the first enlightened coral producers to actually join the Friend of the Sea program and apply for certification. Wonderful. And then my last poll is more like the usual rating for the webinar. So it's all anonymous, and you can decide whatever you want to vote. Okay. So at this point, I will, while I let everybody vote, I will check in case there's any question. No questions so far. Maybe we're too busy also follow me and my presentation. But it happens. I know it's also late in the day, so some of you might be tired. But I really appreciate your participation. I really hope also that there are some UV cream producers involved, or in general that I managed to provide you with some useful new data. So let me see the results of the polls, of the first 2 polls. So basically, I'll show with you the results. Among those who voted, 50% considers all of the threats that I have, or requirements that I suggested as, let's say, equally important or fundamental. And then a good 42% considers the presence or absence of, in this case, absence of some potentially toxic substances to be fundamental to consider a sun cream and UV cream as sustainable. That's very interesting. And one person voted for plastic offset. That's quite interesting. And as far as the threat for corals, apparently the most voted is climate change. Okay. And then the second one is unsustainable fishing practices. Okay. And then at 10% equal level, UV creams, pollution from urban areas, and coral jewels industry. That's interesting. Well, basically, that's telling us that while we have to look at UV creams too, because when you do diving or you swim near snorkeling, you are near the coral, so obviously this could have an impact locally specifically. But you're telling that there are, let's say, more global potential impacts, and there's less consideration, let's say, for building, even though apparently in some areas this has been very devastating. Okay, well, thank you. I share with you the results. I think I did also with the other one. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. And we got some questions. So, do the general sunscreens affect other underwater animals? Okay. What do you think are the negative impacts which creams using natural or organic ingredients could have? Okay, as for the first question, the impact, there is an impact also on other animals. Well, first of all, as we explained, that the areas where the coral reefs are houses, let's say, for fish and aquatic species reproduction. There are spawning areas very often for many species. And so if the coral reef dies, also this biodiversity and the increase in biomass is impacted. And then, as I have explained on a certain slide, there is some impact, of course, also on other aquatic species, including mussels, including even dolphins, because the ingredients can bioaccumulate in the dolphin body, and as it lives, let's say, longer than other species. So definitely there are other impacts also on algae, seaweeds, and so on. And the negative impacts of other creams which use natural or organic ingredients. Well, definitely, this is probably the best choice. It must be, however, cleared out that, as I said, the studies are not always conclusive. Even more natural and organic creams can have a lot of ingredients. And at very high densities, this could have a potential impact. But it's definitely lower than creams with those toxic elements, at least based on the most updated scientific evidence. And then time will tell, and of course we will adapt in terms of our requirements also in case some new discoveries are brought to the surface. So, however, yes, definitely to opt for a sunscreen which doesn't have those ingredients is a safe choice. I wouldn't just say natural or organic, because natural is a very generic definition. Okay, so I see no other question. We already had 40 minutes into this webinar. Of course, we are always available in case you need more information. You can find the handouts in the handouts button here after the polls, the dossier with the UV creams, as well as the link to the Friend of the Sea Sustainable UV Cream page. Feel free to contact us, and thank you so much for participating to this webinar. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Help our planet with this first step. Follow Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth across our social media. Like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your follow and subscription helps us spread the sustainability message to everyone. Let's build a better world together as sustainable friends.